December 2014, the small town of Cortland, Mississippi, was shocked by a horrific crime. Jessica Chambers, a 19-year-old woman, was found severely burned on a rural road. Despite her injuries, she managed to tell first responders that someone named Eric was responsible before succumbing to her injuries. On December 6, 2014, first responders arrived at the scene of a car fire off Heron Road. They found Jessica Chambers walking towards them, her clothes burned off and her skin charred. Despite the excruciating pain, she managed to speak. She was rushed to the hospital, but tragically died from her injuries. The sight was harrowing, leaving the community in shock. The chilling 911 call made by a passerby described the horrifying scene vividly, painting a grim picture of the events that had unfolded. Jessica Chambers was known in her community as a vibrant and outgoing young woman. She had recently graduated high school and was exploring her future options, including further education and job opportunities. Friends and family described her as a loving and caring individual, full of life and potential. She was known for her infectious smile and the way she lit up any room she entered. Jessica's last day started like any other. She visited a gas station where surveillance footage captured her filling up her car and chatting with the clerk. This gas station, frequented by many in the small town, became a crucial point in the investigation. Jessica then spent time with friends, visiting various places and enjoying her day. Unbeknownst to them, these would be her final moments. The footage showed her in good spirits, making the tragic events that followed even more inexplicable. Investigators meticulously combed through the crime scene, collecting evidence. Jessica's car, a black Kia Rio, was found engulfed in flames. Burn patterns and traces of accelerant suggested arson. Forensic teams worked tirelessly to piece together the sequence of events. The rural road where she was found became the focal point of the investigation, drawing media attention and community concern. The scorched earth and remnants of the fire left a haunting reminder of the violence that had occurred. The investigation into Jessica's murder was intense and complex. Authorities focused on her last known activities, including visiting a gas station and interacting with friends earlier that day. Surveillance footage from the gas station showed Jessica filling up her car and talking to someone. This footage became a crucial piece of evidence. Additional witness testimonies and phone records were examined to create a timeline of her final hours. Investigators also looked into potential motives and suspects, diving deep into Jessica's personal life and relationships. Quentin Tellis, a local man with a criminal record, became the primary suspect. He was one of the last people believed to have been with Jessica. Cell phone data placed Tellis near the crime scene, and his inconsistent statements raised further suspicion. Despite this, the case was far from straightforward. Friends and acquaintances were interviewed, and various theories emerged, complicating the investigation. Tellis's background and connections were scrutinized, adding layers of complexity to the case. His past criminal activities and associations were analyzed, building a profile that could potentially link him to the crime. Tellis was indicted in February 2016, but the case was fraught with challenges. Jessica's final words naming Eric as her attacker created reasonable doubt. The prosecution argued that Jessica was unable to clearly articulate due to her severe injuries. Tellis faced 2 mistrials due to hung juries, and the case remains unresolved. The courtroom was filled with tension as both sides presented their arguments, but justice seemed elusive. The trials were marked by emotional testimonies and detailed forensic evidence presentations. The defense highlighted inconsistencies in the prosecution's case, while the prosecution emphasized the circumstantial evidence against Tellis. The legal proceedings were extensive and emotionally draining for Jessica's family. The mistrials highlighted the difficulties in securing a conviction despite strong circumstantial evidence. Legal experts weighed in on the case, discussing the challenges of prosecuting such complex crimes. The community watched closely, hoping for a resolution. The legal process brought to light many nuances of the justice system, from jury selection to the presentation of forensic evidence. The brutal nature of the crime and the complexities of the investigation left a lasting impact on Cortland, Mississippi. The community rallied together, holding vigils and memorials in Jessica's honor. Her family, devastated by the loss, continued to seek justice and keep her memory alive. The case drew national attention, highlighting the challenges and frustrations of the legal system. Support groups formed, and the town held fundraisers to aid in the legal battle. Community leaders spoke out about the need for justice, and various advocacy groups offered their support to Jessica's family. Media coverage played a significant role in the case. National news outlets reported extensively on the investigation, trials, and community response. The coverage brought attention to the broader issues of violence and justice, sparking discussions across the country. The public followed the developments closely, expressing their support for Jessica's family. The media spotlight also highlighted the procedural intricacies and the emotional toll on everyone involved. Despite the unresolved case, Jessica's family and the community continue to seek justice. The brutal nature of the crime and the complexities of the investigation have left a lasting impact on Cortland, Mississippi. The case remains a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring quest for justice. Advocacy for victims' rights and reform in the legal system gained momentum as a result of this tragic event. Local and national organizations worked together to bring attention to similar cases and push for changes in the legal system. As the years pass, Jessica's story continues to be a symbol of the ongoing struggle for truth and justice. The community of Cortland holds on a hope that one day, closure will be found for Jessica Chambers and her family. Through continued efforts and advocacy, Jessica's legacy lives on as a beacon for justice and change. Her story is a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of community support in times of tragedy. Educational programs and awareness campaigns were launched to prevent similar tragedies, and scholarships in Jessica's name were established to support young women in the community. Jessica's case also sparked discussions about law enforcement practices, forensic advancements, and the importance of timely and accurate investigations. The lessons learned from this case continue to influence policing and legal practices, aiming to improve the system and provide justice for all victims of violent crimes. In the quiet town of Las Cruces, New Mexico, on the morning of February 10th, 1990, a horrific event unfolded that would leave the community reeling for decades. Two unidentified gunmen entered the Las Cruces Bowl and turned a typical morning into a nightmare, leading to what is now known as the Las Cruces Bowling Alley Massacre. It was just before 8 a.m. when the manager, Stephanie C. Senak, was in her office preparing to open for the day. With her were her 12-year-old daughter, Melissa Repass, and Melissa's friend, 13-year-old Amy Hauser. In the kitchen, the alley's cook, Ida Holwyn, was starting her morning tasks when two men entered through an unlocked door. The gunman, one armed with a .22 caliber pistol, quickly took control of the situation. They forced Ida Holwyn into the office at gunpoint, where Stephanie, Melissa, and Amy were already present. The robbers demanded money and took approximately $4,000 to $5,000 from the safe. During this terrifying ordeal, the victims complied with the robbers' demands, hoping for a non-violent resolution. As the robbery progressed, Steve Turan, the alley's pin mechanic, arrived with his two young daughters, 6-year-old Paula and 2-year-old Valerie, having been unable to find a babysitter. Upon entering the office, Steve and his daughters were also forced to the floor with the other victims. Without warning, the gunman began shooting each of the 7 victims multiple times at point-blank range. They then set fire to some papers and fled the scene, leaving a nightmare behind. Despite her critical injuries, Melissa Repass managed to call 911, providing vital information and initiating the emergency response. Her bravery was instrumental in saving her own life, as well as those of her mother, Stephanie Senak, and Ida Holwyn. Tragically, Amy Hauser and the Turan family did not survive. Paula Turan was declared dead on arrival at the hospital, and her sister Valerie and father Stephen were pronounced dead at the scene. Law enforcement officers quickly established roadblocks around Las Cruces, screening anyone attempting to leave the city. The U.S. Customs Service, Army, and Border Patrol searched with planes and helicopters, but the perpetrators were not apprehended. Despite the quick response, leads were sparse, and the investigation faced many challenges. Sketches of the suspects were created based on eyewitness descriptions, and the case received extensive media coverage, but the gunman remained elusive. The massacre left a deep scar on the Las Cruces community. Vigils, memorials, and fundraisers were held to support the victims' families and honor the lives lost. The horrific nature of the crime and the lack of resolution weighed heavily on the hearts of the residents. The community banded together, creating support networks for the grieving families and advocating for justice. Over the years, the Las Cruces Police Department has continued to pursue leads and re-examine evidence, hoping to bring the perpetrators to justice. Despite advancements in forensic technology and renewed interest in the case, no arrests have been made. The case remains open, with investigators urging anyone with information to come forward. Documentaries and true crime shows have brought renewed attention to the case, but the identity of the gunman remains a mystery. The Las Cruces Bowling Alley Massacre stands as a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the capacity for senseless violence. The families of the victims continue to seek closure, and the community remains vigilant in its quest for justice. The unsolved nature of the case has left many questions unanswered, perpetuating a sense of unease and sorrow. Media coverage played a significant role in the case. National news outlets reported extensively on the investigation, trials, and community response. The coverage brought attention to the broader issues of violence and justice, sparking discussions across the country. The public followed the developments closely, expressing their support for the victims' families. The media spotlight also highlighted the procedural intricacies and the emotional toll on everyone involved. The legacy of the Las Cruces Bowling Alley Massacre is one of resilience and the unyielding pursuit of justice. As the years pass, the memories of those lost remain vivid in the hearts of their loved ones and the community. The case serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of vigilance, community support, and the relentless search for truth. Educational programs and awareness campaigns were launched to prevent similar tragedies, and scholarships in the victims' names were established to support young people in the community. The massacre also highlighted the importance of law enforcement training and preparedness in handling such violent crimes. It prompted local police departments to improve their procedures and response strategies. Law enforcement agencies across the country took note of the case, using it as a case study to enhance their own investigative techniques and crisis management protocols. The psychological impact on the survivors and the families of the victims was profound. Counseling and support services were provided to help them cope with the trauma. The community's collective grief and the ongoing search for justice created a bond among residents, who supported each other through vigils, fundraisers, and community events. Despite the passage of time, the hope for resolution remains strong. The Las Cruces Police Department continues to investigate the case, using new forensic methods and re-examining old evidence. The families of the victims, along with the community, hold on to the hope that one day, the perpetrators will be identified and brought to justice. As the years pass, the story of the Las Cruces Bowling Alley Massacre continues to be a symbol of the ongoing struggle for truth and justice. The community of Las Cruces holds on a hope that one day, closure will be found for the victims and their families. Through continued efforts and advocacy, the legacy of those lost lives on as a beacon for justice and change. Their story is a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of community support in times of tragedy. The only survivors after the incident were Ida Holwyn, Melissa Repass, and Stephanie Senak. However, Senak died in 1999 due to complications from her injuries. The survivors provided details of the gunman's appearance shortly after the incident on February 10, 1990. Law enforcement officers interviewed the survivors, including Ida Holwyn and Melissa Repass, as soon as they were able to speak. Their descriptions were crucial in creating the composite sketches that were distributed to the public and media in the days following the massacre. The Setagaya family murder is one of Japan's most notorious unsolved cases. The victims were a family of four: Mikio Miyazawa, his wife Yasuko, their 8-year-old daughter Nina, and their 6-year-old son Rei. The tragic event took place in the Setagaya ward of Tokyo, Japan, in a quiet residential neighborhood. The Miyazawa family lived in a semi-detached house located next to a park that was scheduled to be redeveloped. The park was a popular spot among local children and residents, adding to the shock when the gruesome crime was discovered. The murders occurred during the night of December 30th, 2000, and the early hours of December 31st, 2000. The details of the incident are both chilling and perplexing. The perpetrator entered the Miyazawa home through a second-floor bathroom window, likely accessing it by climbing a tree. Mikio Miyazawa, who was working on his computer on the first floor, was the first to be attacked. He was found at the bottom of the stairs, having suffered multiple stab wounds from a sashimi knife, which was later found broken at the scene. The attacker then moved upstairs, where Yasuko and Nina were brutally murdered in their bedroom. Both mother and daughter suffered severe injuries from the same weapon. Finally, young Rei was strangled to death in his sleep in his room. The brutality of the murders was shocking, and it was clear that the family had no chance to defend themselves. After committing these heinous acts, the perpetrator did something unusual. He stayed in the house for several hours. The intruder used the family computer to connect to the internet, searched through the family's belongings, ate ice cream and other food from their refrigerator, drank tea, and even took a nap on the living room sofa. The killer also used the bathroom and left traces of his blood on a bandage, providing crucial DNA evidence. Furthermore, the assailant left various personal items at the scene, including a scarf, gloves, and a hip bag. The Miyazawa family was discovered by Yasuko's mother on the afternoon of December 31st when she visited the house after being unable to reach them. What she found was a scene of unimaginable horror and tragedy. Despite extensive investigations, the case remains unsolved. Over the years, more than 280,000 officers have been involved in the investigation, which has been described as one of the largest in Japan's history. The police collected numerous pieces of evidence, including the killer's DNA and fingerprints. Based on the evidence, it is believed that the killer was of mixed Asian and European descent, possibly from a nearby country. A pair of sneakers, believed to be worn by the perpetrator, were found at the scene. They were size 28.5 centimeters, about 11 US size, which is unusually large for Japan. Additionally, sand found in the shoes suggested they had come from a specific area in the United States. Another intriguing detail was the discovery of a peculiar shirt and a sweater, which were not sold in Japan, pointing towards an international connection. Forensic scientists also discovered trace amounts of a specific type of fluorescent dye used in South Korea, leading to speculations that the killer might have had connections to that region. Despite these clues, no definitive suspect has been identified. Theories and speculations. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged regarding the motive and identity of the killer. Some suggest that the perpetrator was a contract killer, possibly hired by someone with a grudge against Mikio Miyazawa. Others believe that the attack was random and that the killer was a transient person with mental health issues. There have also been speculations about the involvement of organized crime groups, given the level of violence and the calculated manner in which the murders were carried out. However, no concrete evidence has been found to support these theories. Another theory suggests that the killer might have been a foreigner living in Japan, which could explain the presence of foreign items and the mixture of DNA evidence. This theory points towards the possibility of an expatriate or a traveler who left the country shortly after the murders. The Setagaya family murder has left a lasting impact on the public consciousness in Japan. The case has been featured in numerous television programs, documentaries, and articles, highlighting the enduring fascination and horror surrounding the crime. It has also sparked discussions about the effectiveness of the Japanese police and their investigative methods. The case has led to calls for improved safety measures in residential areas and greater awareness of potential threats. The neighborhood where the murders took place has undergone significant changes, with new developments and increased security measures. However, the memory of the tragedy still lingers, serving as a stark reminder of the fragility of safety and the impact of violence. The lack of resolution has been particularly hard on the surviving family members and friends of the Miyazawa family. They have had to live with the uncertainty and pain of not knowing who was responsible for such a brutal act. The community has remained supportive, but the shadow of the tragedy looms large. The police continue to follow up on new leads and review evidence, but the Setagaya family murder remains one of Japan's biggest mysteries. Advances in forensic science have provided hope that new techniques might eventually lead to a breakthrough. International cooperation has also been highlighted as a crucial element in solving the case, given the potential foreign connections. Despite the lack of resolution, the Setagaya family murder case underscores the importance of perseverance in the pursuit of justice. The hope is that one day, the perpetrator will be brought to justice, providing closure to the family and the community. Until then, the case remains a poignant reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist within even the most seemingly secure environments. The memory of the Miyazawa family is kept alive through the continued efforts of investigators, the media, and the public. Their story serves as a call to action for greater awareness and vigilance in protecting loved ones and preventing such tragedies in the future.